All
That's
right,
okay.
welcome to a special presentation of the Black Swamp Football Podcast presented by the Gherkin Companies. Honored to have OHSAA Director Tim Stried with us again. He's going to talk about the new 12-team playoff with us. Thank you, Tim, so much for joining us, along with Tory Strock. I'm Lynn Groll. Looking forward to visiting with Tim again, Coach Strock.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim and I go way back to college. He is the pride of Marion Pleasant High School, and I know he doesn't want to toot his own horn, so I like to throw that out there. So, Tim, thank you for graciously taking the time to join us. I think it takes, I don't want to use the word courage, but maybe a little bit to get on the mic and tell your story, because I think sometimes it's easy for people to take shots at the organization, and you guys really don't have any recourse. You don't have a chance to tell your story. So on Lynn and I both thank you for being the voice here.
Well, I appreciate that, Lynn. Tori, great to be with you again. I enjoy doing interviews. I really do. And, I'm in year 18 here, and I think my first few years, I understand what you're saying, Tori. I don't think I reached out and did a lot of interviews my first few years, but I think now that I have the experience and understand where we're coming from, what our messages are, I feel more comfortable trying to answer tough questions and shape the message. And a lot of it is such a misconception of what folks may think a certain decision is made because of little things like that. But no, happy to join, and any questions, fair game. And we've talked about that before, and I'm happy to do that.
The crew here at American Freedom Energy spared Timmy Stried the game before the one in
Oh,
1997 because they were playing his alma mater, Marion Pleasant, in a classic game.
he probably recalls those great Chris Coobs teams at Marion Pleasant, right?
I think they were the defending state champions coming into that game.
Coming
I think
off
they
the
won it in 96, right, Tim? Is that correct?
Well, I could talk about this for 2 hours now. Okay, so I'm going to try to boil this down. Um, Chris Coobs, as we all know, played at Ohio Northern. He also played minor league baseball. Got to Marion Pleasant in 1989. I was his quarterback. I was his first team all conference quarterback. So we need to set the record straight there, right? Uh, but no, I played for Chris. Obviously, learned a ton playing for Coach Coobs, and then we were in the playoffs, and we're going to talk about the playoffs. This was back when only 4 teams got in per region, which you know. We were in the playoffs my sophomore, junior, and senior year. That was 91, 92, 93. And then they struggled in 94. They were in the playoffs in 95, but then in 96, they won the state championship and beat Versailles and
Mhm.
snapped Versailles' 54 game winning streak. So, but then, Pleasant won it again in 2002. They were in the playoffs 97 through 01, but they were state runner-up in 2001. But I can't, so is this game here from 1997?
This is from 97, second round game when Liberty Center and Patrick Henry rematched in the snow down at Finley. And Coach, you were a part of that on the other side of the Maumee River that night.
I was on the Patrick Henry staff,
I do recall that.
Tim. So we beat Liberty Center in the regular season over here at Rex Lindgren Tiger Stadium, and they got us in the rematch at Donnell Stadium. So,
Mhm.
but it was a first round game, right? Liberty Center and Pleasant.
Yes. I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
97. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the kind of the one of the sub stories to that 96 team is that, and as you know, especially in Central Ohio, what region you're in changes from year to year. In the corners of the state, your region is pretty consistent. You're pretty much in the same region every year. Where in Central Ohio, you might be in the Northwest region one year. My 3 years of high school that we were in the playoffs, we were in a different region every year. And
Wow.
my sophomore year, we were in the Southwest. We played Bishop Fenwick. My junior year, it was kind of an Eastern district. We lost to East Knox and Casey Beckett, who played at Toledo. And then my senior year, it was a Southeast region. We lost to Woodsfield, which is down on the Ohio River. I mean, this team from Woodsfield down south of Marietta came up to Gahanna Lincoln to play a Central
Hmm.
District school. But in '96, the year Pleasant won the state title, they were in a Northwest geographically oriented region. And being at Bluffton, I scouted their playoff opponents that year. So I scouted Woodmore, and then they won that game based on my scouting report. Can I go ahead and say that? And they beat Avon or Avon Lake, one of the two. I forget who was after that. And then they beat North Lima South Range.
Hmm.
I scouted all those teams, and I honestly did not think. I mean, on paper they were outmatched. You know, those other teams were bigger. Um, Pleasant did not have what I thought was enough size up front to match up, especially with South Range. But they got by him and then came up against Al Hetrick and Versailles. And some of my friends at Bluffton College were Versailles folks. Um, and they I remember they talked about, this winning streak coming in, and I don't think Versailles played very well that game. I was at that game, and it was in Massillon. And I would say Versailles would probably say they didn't play very well that game. And they threw a halfback pass that got picked off late in the game that I bet coach would rather have that call back. But Pleasant won it and snapped that winning streak. So that was their second state championship. They also won the first ever playoff game in 1972. I'll tell you that
Hmm.
story on another show.
Wow. Wow. We could go way back here.
Timmy's
I didn't
mind.
know all this.
He's
And I believe Pleasant returned quite a few players from that 96 team going into 97, right, Tim? If you remember, you
They
had quite a few underclassmen.
Um, there were some, but their top players were seniors.
Okay.
And Scott Farrison was their quarterback, who actually went out to Arizona State for a year, and then he came back to, I believe, Mercyhurst and was a starter at Mercyhurst. Um, so he was there. He set all the passing records at Pleasant. And Nathan Shoup, who I believe ran track at Akron, was the go-to receiver. So they had Ryan Bourne, who was a tight end. He played at Wittenberg. So they were all seniors. Um, but they did have a couple, I think a couple of their linemen were underclassmen. But they had luck on their side and they played excellent and won a state title. Real quick though, I could talk about this for an hour, but and Blair, you don't know the name Blair Irvin.
yeah.
He was an assistant commissioner at the
Mhm.
OHSA. I met him. This is when I first started OHSA, and he said, asked me where I went to high school. I said Marion Pleasant. He said Marion Pleasant. Now that's a story right there. So the OHSA introduced the football playoffs in 1972. Well, prior to that, did we ever have overtime? No. You never needed overtime. There was never a tournament where you needed to determine a winner. So in 1972, the playoffs began and the OHSA put together an overtime policy. Well, in the Class A 1972 state championship game, it is 8-8, and both teams score later in the third quarter. So it's 14-14. Missed the extra point. They can't kick back then, evidently, right? And Lorraine Clearview has the ball about midfield with time running out in the fourth quarter. And instead of just taking a knee and going to overtime, Lorraine Clearview was trying to score. They were going to try to win the game on the last play. And Blair Irvin told me there was confusion on the Lorraine Clearview sideline. They were trying to hurry up and throw a Hail Mary, and they ran that play, and the quarterback for Clearview drops back, and Terry King, the left defensive end, comes around the corner and hits him in the back with the ball up in the air. The ball falls on the ground. Dave Mock, the other defensive end, picks up the ball and runs it 60 yards for a touchdown as the clock hits 0.
Wow.
And that is the first ever state championship game for the OHSA, won by Marion Pleasant with no time on the clock. It was at Ohio Wesleyan.
I was just going to ask where it was played
It
at.
was at Selby Stadium at Ohio Wesleyan University. And Blair said that they were starting to look in their bag for the overtime policy because no
Huh.
one knew what it was.
Right.
And they
Wow.
didn't end up needing it.
That's an incredible, incredible story. I never knew that.
Talk about a call you'd like to have back. And I know that's been a few years ago, but anyone that was involved with that game, I'm sure it gets talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
It-
and those guys are still around Pleasant. They're heroes and legends at Pleasant, and they're still around. They would talk to our team when I was there. They still talk to the team. Dave Mock is the team physician. He's a doctor in Marion.
Mhm.
So um, they have his jersey and the game ball and trophy case.
wow.
Well, Tim, and I know we have to move on here, but
Mhm.
they got to wake up the echoes at Marion Pleasant. They've been asleep, buddy. Is
They
it a numbers thing? Is it, is it a talent thing, or is it a combination of everything?
I think it's the combination of a lot of things. They need to find some playoff success in their division. I would say Pleasant has struggled in the regular season recently because their conference now is much tougher than when we were in school.
Okay.
So when I was in school and up until probably 15 years ago, the conference was the Morrow County schools and the Marion County schools, and then you added in North Union and Buckeye Valley. Well, now that conference has medium and bigger size schools. They're playing Shelby, Ontario, Clear Fork. Like these are schools that send kids to D1 colleges.
Mhm.
These are good high school programs. I didn't have to play against those schools when I was there. They've only had to do that recently. Marion Harding is in their conference. So,
Hmm.
it's a different landscape. So I think the tradition is still there. The expectations are still there. Chris Coobs was such a good coach, and he did a lot of unique things, offensively and defensively, and they put it together. And they have not been able to do that here recently. And they have a new coaching staff this year. Again, so I love to hear that expression, the wake up the echoes. I
Hmm.
love to hear that, and hopefully Pleasant can do that here soon.
Did Coach Coobs let you throw it around back in your day, Tim?
No.
Hey,
No.
don't feel bad.
Hey, I will tell you what though, um, and Tory, you'll appreciate this too. I would throw probably one touchdown a game on you play action to the right, you step back and you throw the tight end flag back the other way. It was good for one touchdown a game, so that was at least one pass a game. We run that on my junior high team, and it still hits every time.
I ran that as a head coach, Tim. We called it Y opposite, whatever the other lingo was, but we called it Y opposite. And you get everybody flowing, right? Especially in high school. Well, especially in junior high,
Yes.
that tight end's the forgotten soul, right?
Correct.
So,
Well, we would run that once or twice a game. We'd run the boot pass, which was, the tight ends open on the drag every time. That was good for a couple more. We'd run fake toss boot pass, and we'd roll out. We'd roll out and throw comebacks and smash route and stuff. So we threw it more than he had, so that was good. But as I mentioned, Scott Ferrison, he's in the Pleasant Hall of Fame now. Once he had Scott and a couple of those receivers, then he threw it more. My favorite thing, though, sorry, again, this is off topic, but at least once a game, Coach Coobs, and I would say this if he was sitting right here, he'd call the tailback screen. You got to have a screen pass in there, and Coach didn't know how to. He didn't know how to teach the screen. What he would tell he never did. What he would tell the quarterback is, you take the snap and you just drop back as far as you can. You just keep going. And then by that time you're 40 yards in the backfield, and then you're throwing a bomb back to the line of scrimmage to your running back. So We teach the screen a little different than they did at Marion Pleasant now.
Good stuff.
I won't get into it, but Coach Lingren wasn't a whole lot different in my day, Tim.
Mhm.
So we'd have third down. I'll make this quick. And I had a good receiver named Sean Weimer my junior year, and this was our go-to pass play on, say, third and more than medium. Split right Weimer pass. And I go, well, how deep do you want him going? Just have him run and get open and get the first down. All right, split right Weimer pass. How deep do I go? Just get to the stick, I guess.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And it worked. It worked.
Yep. Yep. When you got a receiver that can do that, oh, it's fun to have a good receiver. And one of these days too, we'll talk about when the Tory Strock Liberty Center Tigers whooped up on Marion Elgin. And what year was that? 92?
91.
Was that the
91.
sledgehammer defense?
That was Fremont
That
St.
was
Joe
oh,
the
that's
next
right.
year.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, so that was 1991. They were ranked number 1.
Yeah,
Okay.
they beat us.
And we barely got in that year because there were only 4 teams. We slid in the 4 spot,
Mhm.
and we played them at Lima Bath High School round 1, and they had a stud named Doug Hessen. Remember that name?
Yep. Oh, he lit us up.
And Tim, about the 4th play of the game, we run 26 trap boot pass. Okay. And 50, 60-yard touchdown throw. And then the route was on. And we beat them 43-18. And they were good, though. I mean, they were. But
They were good, and we were 9-1. They whooped us, and then when I saw Liberty Center beat them in the play, that was before I knew who Tory Strock was, but I saw Liberty Center beat Elgin. Anyone can beat Elgin, and they didn't just have one. Eric Clark,
that's another one.
They had 2,000-yard rushers, and in fact, against us, Eric Clark took back the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and then it was on. But
Tim, do you remember Elgin? They had a semi. They parked in the end zone, and when they'd score, they'd blow the semi horn. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Oh yeah,
no.
Yeah. They even pulled it. I can't believe they let them do this. Looking back, they let them pull it into the end zone at Lima Bath behind the end line.
Oh my God!
Now, not to indict anybody, but wasn't there a Liberty Center fan that confiscated the semi that night?
I think he got in it and locked the door. And
is that right? That's
when we scored, he was blowing the horn. That's what I've always heard.
I believe it.
Good stuff. Well, I got one more pause. Football can wait until next week. We got another week before high school football starts. Tim, are Red Legs going to finally take care of the Brew Crew this weekend at GABP? It's an important question I want you to answer.
If the Reds can take 2 or 3 from the Brewers, I would be the happiest guy out here. I mean, they only may take 1 of 3. The Brewers are so good. Oh my gosh, have they won 12 in a row?
12 or 13, yeah,
13 in a row. The Brewers are just amazing, and I like watching them play. My uncle is a huge Brewers fan, and so I follow them a little bit. What they are doing is just pretty amazing. I mean, it's a great test for the Reds. They're hyping up this series big time, and I would too. But I don't know how the Reds will do. Somehow, it's been this way the last couple of years. The Reds seem to play better against better teams,
but not the Brewers. They've had our number.
Yeah. So hopefully that continues this weekend. And Lynn, I forgot you're a Brewers fan.
No, I'm a Red Legs fan, Timmy.
Okay. Well, you said our Brewers here.
Did I? Sorry.
I was a little nervous there for a second.
No, I'm a Reds fan. I misspoke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I've been a Reds fan forever.
And the good thing is too, the Mets were trying to catch the Mets for that 3rd wild card. They're struggling, so hopefully they continue to struggle and the Reds keep on playing better. But I love this Reds team. They just are fun to watch. They have great starting pitching right now, and my youngest son is an Ellie De La Cruz fan, of course. I'm a Matt McLean fan, but love them all. Tyler Stevenson, Spencer Steer. I mean, he could be an MVP type player. He is just unbelievable. So good team.
Yeah, hopefully they can get into the playoffs. I'd like to see that. I haven't won a playoff series since I think it's 95. Saw a graphic the other day. I think they're the longest team in Major League Baseball to not win a playoff series.
Is that right? You could be right. Yeah, they well, And what was the year? Was it 94 that was the strike?
Strike here. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Reds had the best team in baseball that year.
They did.
And
Yeah.
then the strike happens and you don't finish the season. The Reds were like and I just saw this the other day. The Reds were like 27 games over 500 in mid-July, and then the strike happens, and then you don't finish the season. So that um, was a good team. Yeah, the I was at the game 3 game at home against the San Francisco Giants when the Reds
Don't
were
bring it
up
up. Don't
two
bring that up.
nothing. That was one of the most depressing losses, and then we lose 3 in a row at home.
Yeah. After
Um,
going up 2-0, when
yeah,
two
we
out
win
there.
twice. Yeah, we win twice out there. Homer Bailey pitches a one-hitter, and it's like we're in, we're going, and then we come home and lay an egg 3 games in a row.
Yeah. Bad memory for me from that series. I'm going to have to take a break here. We're already a half hour in. I got to get some commercials played.
All right.
We'll be right back and we'll talk about high school football finally. We'll
Sounds
get there
good.
in the playoffs.
Sounds good.
Hard-working individuals have been the heart of the Gherkin companies for generations. Together, we construct the highways and infrastructure that strengthen our communities. Gherkin is seeking rock-solid performers. We offer generous benefits, continuous training, top-notch equipment, and a culture that rewards effort. Want to be part of something big, steady, and stable with room to grow? Whether you're experienced or just starting your career, we encourage you to apply at gherkincompanies.com/careers.
The Swanton Welding Company proudly supports our local student athletes and coaches. We're committed to being your local steel fabrication company in Northwest Ohio and building projects across the country. For job opportunities at the Swanton Welding Company, visit www.swantonweld.com or visit them at 407 Zider Way in Swanton. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store off Route 24 on State Route 109, just south of Liberty Center, now has 88 unleaded fuel and is your one-stop shop for fuel, food, drinks, and much, much more, including locally raised meats and home-baked goods. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store is proud to support Black Swamp Football and is the host of the Black Swamp Football podcast, football show, and Saturday mornings Rise and Rewind. Stop in and see Glenn and Greg today and make American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store a part of your everyday routine. Welcome back to the Black Swamp Football Podcast presented by the Gherkin Companies, joined on a special episode by OHSAA Director of Media Relations, Tim Stried. Can't thank Tim enough for joining us from Columbus as he finishes up the work week. We are honored to have him on. We're going to talk about the new 12-team playoff system that's going into effect for the Ohio high school football teams around the state.
Yeah, Tim, thank you for joining us, especially on a Friday. And I know with that Columbus area traffic, my daughter lives in Hilliard now, and just going to see her, my head about explodes driving there, let alone on a Friday at this time. So thank you.
No problem at all. Happy to join you guys. And yeah, if you would have asked me a year ago if we would have scaled it back to 12, I would have said I don't think so. So it's been an interesting winter and spring, and yes, going from 16 to 12, it's been an interesting year.
What went into this decision from the OHSAA perspective, Tim?
A lot of voices in the room for sure. And the interesting thing is, over the last couple years, as everyone knows, the OHSAA has been expanding things. We've been expanding divisions in sports. We've been adding divisions, adding sports in general. So this is really out of character a little bit to scale it back in terms of participation. Um, you know, and I'll give the background really quick. I mean, just because probably everyone knows that we were at, of course, 4 schools per region when we played, and then we were at 8 schools per region for about 20 years. The Football Coaches Association, and this is back in 2019, the Football Coaches Association made a proposal to go to 12. So that meant instead of a 5-week tournament, it was a 6-week tournament. Their proposal was that the top 4 teams would get a bye. And I was a little surprised at that. I didn't think coaches would necessarily want a bye in week 11, but the Coaches Association wanted expansion, and our board approved that in January of 2020. So for the 2020 playoffs, we were going to 12, and we all know what happened. Of course, the pandemic hits, the COVID-19 is here, and so in the fall of 2020, any team that wanted to get in the playoffs did. And some schools didn't play football that fall, some played a few games. So everyone got in. And the feedback we got from, well, a lot of schools, but especially the schools that were not in the playoffs very much or hadn't been in a long time, that feedback was so positive, and we got so many thank yous for letting us in. Thank you for expanding the playoffs. That really was meaningful, and we all felt that here. It was during the pandemic, of course, and it was a different time, but that positive feedback from more schools getting in then led us to, in the fall of 21, not just do 12 and have buys. Let's let 4 more schools into the playoffs per region. So you have 16, and that meant there were no buys. But that's what led to 16. And we did that for 4 years. And yes, we had a 16 beat a 1. Yes, there were always some 15s and 14s that won. We had a 14 advance, 3 rounds here recently. So it wasn't necessarily that there were always lopsided scores in those lower seeds. There were lower seeds that won, but there is always feedback from coaches, from the Coaches Association, from our board, from constituents that we work with on a regular basis that, okay, we've lived with this 16 per region for a few years now, and not everyone was happy with that. Of course, there are a lot of folks that remember how hard it was to get into the playoffs for a long time, and now almost every school, especially in Division I, makes it. So, there were some media folks that did a survey back, after the postseason, and we did a survey, and it was interesting. It wasn't a huge majority, but a slight majority of our member schools did agree with going back to 12. And I don't have the exact percentage right in front of me, but a slight percentage of our schools did agree with going back to 12. And there were other voices in the room too. We obviously talked to a lot of folks, and I think part of why schools are more likely to favor 12 now happens to be the buy. For years it was, we don't want to buy. We don't want to buy. Well, I don't know if you're seeing this in your area, but we're seeing it more across the state. Teams are more likely to schedule a buy. It could be the wear and tear on the season. Obviously, if it could be a 16-week season for some. And so I think the top teams are now more looking at it. If we can get a top 4 seed, this could be our buy chance to get healthy and get ready for the second round. So we had all this data with our staff and our board, and our board did take a look at that and say, we've tried 16 for a few years now. Let's look at 12. This isn't set in stone for the next 20 years. Let's see what 12 looks like. Let's see how it plays out this year, this coming season, and see what happens. And like every year, we'll reevaluate after the season. We'll see how it all worked with 12 and see where we go for next season.
The survey that you sent out, did that go to coaches, principals, and superintendents, Tim, or who did that go to?
Yeah, it went to coaches and athletic directors, and I believe principals.
Okay. Did each school just get one vote, or did each separate person get a vote in this?
Each separate person got a vote.
Okay.
Yeah, so there were a lot of, it wasn't just, 707 votes. It was it was almost 2,000, I think, that we looked at the data from. So yeah, schools had more than one vote.
Okay. And you don't have those numbers in front of you, or do you?
No, I don't have them right in front of me, no.
Okay.
Tim, at what point, where's your guys' threshold? No matter what you do, you're never going to please everybody, right? So you guys got to do what you believe is in the best interest of your membership and the student athletes. So at what point do you guys take a look at each other and say, you know what? We need to take a look at making some changes. Is there a threshold? I mean, did you guys feel more pressure on this topic than you have other topics in recent memory?
I think so. I think so. We talked about the pandemic a little bit. The pressure and stress from that year was unlike anything that I think we've experienced. Um, but there's been some topics that have been similar that involve state lawmakers. There's been some issues that have come up. They're political issues for the most part, but um, transfers, vouchers, transgender regulations. I could probably list 10 of them that you have state lawmakers weighing in on. And this kind of rose to that level where, okay, there are people who are not even educators or administrators who are weighing in on this, and all that comes in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know what you're saying. It was it was more of a larger statewide issue than most of the things that we deal with. It does um, do if we have two divisions in golf or three, that's not something that we're gonna feel a lot and hear a lot about. But how many teams make the football playoffs? Yeah, we're going to hear about that. And that also speaks to um, how important the high school football playoffs are in Ohio. I mean, I guess and that's a good thing. That is something that so many people have a vested interest in that. So that's going to bring in more opinions.
Tim, my last thing really, because Lynn's actually he's much better with the journalistic part of this. I'm curious, and you don't even have to answer this, to be quite honest with you. At my daughter's wedding, there was a young man there who was in attendance that works for a lobbyist firm down in Columbus. And it was late into the night, and I was mesmerized by some of the things he shared with me about how politics work in Columbus and that. Do you feel like you've had more involvement from lawmakers in the last year or two than you did, say, 15 years ago? Or has it
Yes.
always been like that?
Oh no, it's been more recently for
Okay.
sure.
I'm just
And
curious.
oh, it has been. It has been, sure. One of the big topics was recently was cash ticket
Mm,
sales,
Mhm.
you know.
mhm.
Um, that was an issue where we were going cashless. We were going to more digital ticketing. And like every college is in Ohio, like all the pro teams are, you can't walk into Ohio State and put down a $20 bill. So most colleges and pro teams are already there. We have some of our state tournament venues that are already cashless, and so we're moving that direction. And lawmakers stepped in and said, no, we're not doing that at the high school level. So um, that was an interesting time too. So yeah, I mean, Tory, you're right. Like lawmakers are more involved now, and it seems like since the pandemic, that's really been the case.
Yeah.
So that I don't know if the pandemic was what ignited it or if that was moving that direction anyway. But yes, there is more involvement from lawmakers than I recall.
Okay. Thank you for being candid. I assumed so,
Yeah.
but thank you.
Mhm.
Tim, full disclosure, I was part of this media group. I was brought in last fall to do this survey and kind of dig into and before even that, I had heard from coaches, we don't like 16. We're seeing too many injuries. We're seeing our kids get beat up with long playoff runs. And the more I dug into it and started visiting with not just coaches. I hear it from the majority of coaches, at least up this way. And I've talked with coaches from other parts of Ohio here the last several years about the impact of a 16 team playoff per region. But also trainers and physicians were speaking that they're seeing the effects of the longer seasons on the kids. And it kind of woke me up a little bit. I didn't think about the mental aspect of things that some trainers had brought up to me. The pressures of performing for 16 weeks if you get to a state championship game. Can you speak to that a little bit, and maybe uh, the season being a little bit too long with 16 weeks, especially if you're a Marion local or a Kirtland or teams like that that are making a run to the state championship every year and playing 16 straight weeks. We don't see that in college or pro. And then we have high school kids that are going 16 straight weeks.
Yeah, and how long is the college season now? Is with the playoff? How many games did Ohio State play last year? Was that 16?
15, 16. Now they do have some buys in there and the playoff between the regular season and the bowl games. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the college playoff is expanded now, and and I think we've all read some feedback from NFL players. A 17-week NFL season, that is a gauntlet right there. No, I got some pretty strong opinions on that. Um, first of all, we see blowouts every week of the regular season, right? We see them in the playoffs. There's injuries during the regular season. There's injuries during the playoffs. I don't think I've seen any hard data to say that there are more injuries in the playoffs than in the regular season. I don't think that kind of data exists. Couple interesting things. Couple of the teams you mentioned, Marion Local and Kirtland, and there's a lot of obviously outstanding teams. We talk about Liberty Center, talk about Ironton, we talk about a lot of schools that are often making deep playoff runs. I think it was Marion Local. I think their starters played in the second half of 4 games this past season. You know where I'm going with that. The top teams in the state that make it to week 16, they have had a lot of blowouts along the way. Those are obviously excellent teams, and a lot of times those starters don't play always into the second half, or definitely in the fourth quarter. So a high school season like that is different than NFL, where your starters play the whole game. So that's a couple things to keep in mind. And one thing when we this might be kind of interesting. When we announced we were going from 16 to 12, we had a number of coaches reach out to us and say, if we're not in the top 12, could the OHSA allow us to play another game? Maybe it'd be the 15 versus 16 or the 13 versus 14. Could we play another game? It wouldn't be in the playoffs, we get it, but could we have another week with our kids and play another game? So I thought that was fascinating. And there are some schools. What was it? Delphus St. John's were they a 13 or a 14 seed last year?
15 seed last year.
15.
Got to the
And they
regional
won
final.
3 games. There are schools out there that maybe they'll miss the playoffs, and they're already asking, if we're not in, could you let us play another game? So I just mentioned that because yes, 16 games. Is that a much longer season than it had been? It's a longer season for sure. But you know, it, the coaches are also able to manage that kind of length of the season as well. That they're if you make it to week 16, you've had some blowouts along the way. And I guess the biggest thing to keep in mind too, the Ohio High School Football Coaches Association recommended going another round. Um, that proposal back in 2019 came from the Football Coaches Association, not the OHSAA. The Coaches Association said, can we go from 8 to 12 and add another round of the playoffs? So I guess that's something I'll stress, is that, the coaching leadership wanted more games. And we've seen that in other sports. I mean, shoot, when we played, there were 20 games in basketball. The Coaches Association proposed 22, so now you can play 22. Ice hockey's at 35. So most of the proposals have been, let's expand, let's add divisions, let's add games. And so, I guess I was back in 2019 when the Coaches Association proposed 12, which that also, as we know, it means the season starts a week earlier than normal, right? I mean, we're starting next week, and normally it would be the week after that. So when the Coaches Association recommended 12, that meant that, and that means this year, if you are a number 5 through 12 seed and you make it to the state championship game, yeah, you might play 16 games. So, the Coaches Association didn't recommend going back to 8 or going back to 4. They said 12.
I've talked to a lot of coaches too around, especially this area, other parts of the state too. They've discussed, do we shorten the regular season? Do we go to a 9-game regular season? It would be hard for some conferences that have 10 schools, Western Buckeye League, one from around here that has 10, and you're playing 9 regular season games. Is that been a discussion with you folks in Columbus of shortening the regular season?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. And I have never talked to one coach that has ever recommended that. So I've, I believe they play 9 games in Indiana. I think they play 8 or 9 in Michigan, and in those states, every team gets in. I think that's Indiana for sure. I think it's that way in West Virginia too. But that question will come up once in a while, and I have never heard one coach or athletic director say, "Let's shorten the regular season." Now, maybe you have. I'm sure there.
Heard it from a couple.
Yeah,
I've heard it from a couple.
I'm sure there's a coach out there that would bring that up. Every time that conversation has ever come up that I've been a part of, it has been that we need to, and this is talking with schools, talking with board members, talking with staff, we need to keep a 10-game regular season so that schools have the opportunity to have 5 home games, because they need 5 home games. Because if they can get 5 home games, that means they can have a JVB girls soccer team, or they can have a freshman boys basketball team. They can have a JV baseball team. The revenue that comes in from your home football games is pretty important to a school's budget. And anytime shortening the regular season has come up, it has been a non-starter in terms of any conversation I've been a part of. Schools are I'm trying to think of the right word. Schools rely on and need those home football games. Ohio State's the same way. I think we've talked about this before. Ohio State is going to want to play 7 home games. I think this year they have 6. There was one year they had 8. And the more home games Ohio State has, the more sports they have, the more they travel. And this is for the fencing team and the cross country team and the swimming team, all those. And at a lot of our high schools, it's pretty similar.
I want you to clear up one aspect. I know when the release came out that it was going to 12, I think it had the 1 seed would play the winner of the 5-12. It's now they're playing the 8-9, correct, Tim?
Correct. That was a typo in that
Okay.
release. Yeah.
I thought so. Okay.
I was hoping you didn't see that, Lynn.
We did see that, and I got several phone calls from coaches right away. Like, why would we play the 5 seed if we're the 1 seed?
Right.
You'd rather be the 4 seed in that situation.
Right. I am now trying to remember where I took that from, and it actually passed through editing. Yeah, as soon as I sent out that release, I think I had 3 or 4 replies with that same question. And I'm going to blame, what state can I blame? Let's pick a state that I can blame that on. But
Iowa.
Let's blame it on Iowa. That's
Toby
correct.
Trail, Iowa.
Yeah.
Yes, Toby Trail.
Yeah.
By the way, his daughter is one hell of a volleyball player. We might see her at the college level.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Toby Trail.
Bluffton.
How many people in this viewership do you think know Toby Trail?
Not many.
Not many.
But
is he still at University of Iowa?
I think so. Everything I seen post is Iowa. Yeah.
Yeah. He also a Marion Pleasant graduate and played basketball at Bluffton when we were there. And you didn't really want him shooting the ball, but he could do a lockdown defender on about anyone.
Well, we're gonna have to get this to him, I think.
We've had some guys we went to school with, Tim, land on their feet in life. You know what I mean? I'd have never thought Toby Trail would ended up at a place like Iowa.
Yeah, he was in the athletic marketing department at University of Iowa.
Wow.
I saw it was is Tyler and Guy Neal coaching in the G League now in the NBA?
Well, Tyler was coaching in that tournament. What was that called?
Oh, the basketball tournament.
Yeah, the basketball tournament. Tyler Neal's
MVP?
team, he
Yeah.
won some games.
Yeah.
And then Coach Neal, Guy Neal, was on the bench with him coaching.
Yep. I saw that.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't see that.
Unbelievable.
Interesting.
Yep. No, absolutely. We've had some guys land on their feet. I love catching up, and it's been a few years since I've been able to make it back to the alumni golf outing, but that's always a great time too. It's a great chance to catch up with people. That's
Hmm.
it. Usually that's during our vacation week, either the front end or back end of when we're out of town.
You're moving the hosts, higher seeds are hosting the first 3 rounds up to the regional semifinals. Tim, take me through that decision a little bit and why you went to an extra round for the higher seed.
Yeah. So when we were moving toward going to 12, and I saw some survey comments that were this way too. The way it has been the last few years, the higher seeded team has been able to host the first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And just like we talked about with regular season home games being so important to schools, home playoff games are important to schools too, obviously. And when we moved to have the top 4 seeds get a bye, well, if you're a top 4 seed, that means you would only have one home playoff game, where in the last how many years you've often had two. And so that was a factor in it. If we can go the first 3 rounds at home, that means those top seeds are going to, if they win in the second round, they're going to have 2 home playoff games like they've had for quite a while. So that was a big part of it. The process and the work that goes into scheduling football neutral site playoff games, that's a heavy lift. That there's a lot that goes into that. And we had been thinking about doing this for a little while anyway. If you let the higher seeded team host, um, there are a lot of benefits for that. Obviously it's a home game for one of the schools, so that's going to be obviously a home game atmosphere. Their people have been running games at the field, and so they have all the workers already there. It's interesting. We have reached out to some neutral site playoff hosts in the last few years that once their team is out of the playoffs, they shut their facility down. They close everything up, they winterize everything, and then it sits for a couple weeks, and then we call and say, "Would you host a regional final? Would you host a state semi?" And they're like, we're done. We are moving on." More that happens more and more these days than what it used to. So, we have a lot of great neutral site playoff hosts in Ohio, but wish we had more. And it's a challenge to get neutral sites. And football is one of the easier ones. Soccer, volleyball, um, baseball, softball, we go to neutral sites when we get to the regionals. And that's a heavy lift for our sport administrators. So we thought, we had talked about doing that anyway, of going an additional round for the higher seeded team to host, and this was the time to do it. So those top 4 seeds, if they win in the second round, now they'll get the 2 home playoff games that they've had for quite a while.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. You good, Coach Strock?
I'm good. I'm good. Tim, I want to thank you, man. You're always graceful. There's got to be times where you just want to explode as you look through social media and things like that. So thank you so much for always being graceful, even if you're under fire or being questioned or whatever it is. I know your integrity. I've known it for a long time, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Tory. Thank you. And I'm glad we're able to reconnect here through this service as well. So it's great to catch up with you guys. And, I don't, I appreciate that, but I don't ever, I don't know. My wife tells me this all the time too. I don't feel like I ever really want to, explode or fire back at anything because, their opinions, and social media is so easy to throw something out there. And, you know, if you, if you throw a rock at every dog that barks at you along the way, you're never going to get to where you're going. You still have to be able to put all that to the side. It can be hard for some people to put social media comments aside. Don't let it get under your skin. And we don't, I give our executive director, Doug Ute, a lot of credit. He doesn't look at social media. we use it as a way to get out information, but I would never look at comments or things people put on social to get worked up about. But NCAA is the same way. I can't imagine all the rocks that get thrown at the NCAA. That happens quite a bit for them too. So you just you have your goals, you have your mission, you know what you need to do to get from A to B, and you don't let things distract you very much. So that's kind of the path we've taken.
Thank you, Tim, so much. You're going to be down at GABP this weekend at all to watch the Redlegs?
Not this weekend, but we have tickets for Saturday, August 30th. I think, oh, shoot, now I forget who, that's embarrassing. I forget who they play that night.
You're going to miss the Buckeye-Texas game?
We'll probably, actually, we talked about that a little bit. We're going to watch the first half on TV, and then we're going to get in the car to head to Cincinnati and listen to Paul Keels and Jim Lachey on the radio, and we'll listen to the second half on the radio, which that's how I haven't watched a Reds game on TV in quite a while. I listened to Tommy Thrall and the Cowboy on the radio. And so that's what we'll do for Ohio State, Texas. First half on TV, second half on the radio.
Well, you're probably like me. When you were a kid, Marty and Joe on the radio at 2 a.m. listening to a West Coast game on a school night, hiding my radio underneath my covers so my parents didn't know I was listening. You probably did the same thing, didn't you?
I sure did. I sure did. And when you heard the old left-hander say we're rounding third and heading for home, that was the time you could go ahead and turn it off.
There you go. Tim, thank you so much for visiting with us. Come back soon.
Sounds good. I will, guys. You guys take care.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.